when that light hits the sky, it's a warning.
These videos are not for children. If you're a children, then piss off.
Hey there, it's me, your least favorite YouTuber, Infuso. And like many Gothamites up to no good, on any given Gotham night, I can finally say, I saw the Batman. For those of you who are new to the channel, you might not know, but I've been hyping this movie up for months. I openly claim that it could very well be the greatest Batman movie ever made, going based on a bunch of trailers, a couple clips, and my sources. So the real question here is, was it? Did the Batman live up to my expectations? Absolutely not. Like with Spider-Man No Way Home, this movie exceeded those expectations. Now look, when I made those videos before talking about this movie potentially being the best Batman movie ever made, it was a little bit of a hyperbole. I was absolutely exaggerating. I mean, I knew this movie was going to be good. Hell, I even knew this movie was going to be really good. But I didn't expect it to be nearly as great as it was. So honestly, no hyperbole, no cap, I'm not exaggerating here when I say this. The Batman may just be the greatest Batman movie ever made. I'm talking all the Batman movies. Not just the live action ones, not just the ones that ended up in theaters. Like, we're talking, this could be the greatest Batman movie ever made. Like, ever. It may just be one of the greatest comic book movies ever made. Everything about this movie works. The few flaws that are present in it are few and far between. And those flaws really just come down to nitpicks. I have never before been so satisfied with a movie as I am with the Batman. The movie is brilliantly paced, and there's a very natural flow to how this story unravels. None of the characters ever overstay their welcome on screen, and they really only enter and exit the plot whenever it's appropriate for the narrative. And by the end of this 3-hour flick, it still doesn't feel like we've had enough time with these characters. It makes you want to see more of them. The cinematography is beautiful, the set design is perfect, and the soundtrack feels entirely symbiotic to the imagery that it accompanies. I can go on, and in a future video, I will. There's just a certain atmosphere that this movie cultivates that feels very noir, and it feels very right for Batman. In terms of performances, there's not a bad one in sight. This movie was perfectly cast, and the cast is perfect. Everyone involved earned their paychecks and a potential appearance in the next movie. Other Batman movies juggle the character's dual identity. They show both sides of the character's life. What's Bruce doing? What's Batman doing? How do they compare? How do they contrast? And they didn't do it here, because that would be impossible for this movie to do. Robert Pattinson's Bruce Wayne is nearly non-existent. He doesn't have issues in his double life, because it's hardly a double life. He barely engages with others when he's not wearing a mask. There isn't this facade that Christian Bale and Ben Affleck's Bruce Wayne put onto the public. Also that they can parade around in shadows dressed as a furry. Now granted, that's an element I almost miss from the character. But considering how early into Batman's career this is, and how alienated and disillusioned by society this young Bruce Wayne is, that makes a lot of sense. He doesn't want to play into that world, he wants to exist separate from it. This Bruce Wayne is not willing to donate half his time into putting on a show. He has rooftops to climb and people to investigate. This Bruce Wayne is a stoic loner who keeps to himself at the very few public events he attends. Public events that he attends exclusively to investigate matters incognito. Bruce Wayne does not exist. This man is Batman 24/7 with or without the mask. His social awkwardness and his lack of interest in playing a part remind me a lot of Michael Keaton's take on the character. Bruce's sole motivation is to stop crime. He has no interest in doing anything outside of that. Every moment of every day, he is devoting his time to cleaning up Gotham City by any means necessary. Except for killing. He doesn't do that. Almost any means necessary. That's one part he won't do. I really enjoy this, and I think in this telling of the tale, more than in any other, you truly understand just how disturbed this Bruce Wayne is. His passion has turned into an obsession. And that obsession has become his life's purpose. This Bruce Wayne is mentally and emotionally stunted. You can tell that this Bruce experienced trauma. And not because the movie spends the time having characters talk about it or showing you a flashback to the day his childhood died, like every other Batman movie ever made. You can tell by his actions. These things aren't spoken, they're seen. His interactions with other people, even those who he's closest with, come across as vaguely awkward or just matter of fact. Unfortunately, his intelligence doesn't quite translate into people skills. But once again, that's not really an area of life that he was applying himself to. This Batman doesn't banter, he doesn't bicker, he's a man of very few words, and that makes the ones he uses matter even more. What he says holds more weight. But I think my favorite part of this interpretation, though, is that the movie doesn't forget the character's empathy. Now, don't get me wrong, the guy is still violent. Maybe even excessively violent. In this one, he's much quicker to throw hands than throw a batarang. But this Batman doesn't kill. He refuses to take a life, or to allow a life to be taken in his presence. Even when he's being shot at by multiple people, he doesn't resort to that same retaliation. He shows mercy to criminals who are less than willing to get physical. He takes sympathy upon a child who just lost their father. He puts his own life at risk constantly trying to save other lives. To me, this is Batman. Unlike any other Batman movie that came out before, this movie balances all that goes into being Batman. He's a martial artist and habitual ass kicker. He's a genius inventor. Batman's inventory of gadgets has to be some of the most advanced any Batman put to screen has ever had. But above all else, he's a detective. This movie does an incredible job of showcasing the world's greatest detective being a detective. Yeah, it sounds basic, right? Like, of course, but not all Batman movies do this. As a matter of fact, for some reason, this is probably the character's greatest forgotten character trait. But this movie not only remembers it, it puts a spotlight on it. We watch him as he investigates crime scenes, being a step ahead of the actual detectives on the case. He observes each and every area for overlooked clues. He translates the Riddler's riddles. He researches. He reviews footage. He puts in work. This Batman is a detective first and a Bat person second. The Riddler in this movie is so perfect for the character, and yet so different from any other interpretation that we've seen before. And yet when we finally see him without the mask, he's no monster. He's a man. A boyish-looking man. He is so unassuming and feeble-looking that it perfectly contrasts with his vicious, violent, and vengeful actions. And once again, to me, that is the Riddler. He's one of Batman's greatest foes, but he wouldn't stand a chance in a fistfight. He doesn't intimidate those he comes across with his simple appearance. He's just not that guy. The Riddler is to be feared because of his high intellect and what it is he does with that power. Never once do you feel this character is anything short of a mastermind. That is until we learn the reasons behind his actions. His jealousy, his idolization, his anger over feeling helpless and lied to for so long. It's only after he thinks he succeeded in breaking the seemingly already broken city that we see the true him. Ultimately, all Eddie Nash wanted to do was to be seen. To do something big and be able to take credit for it. There's something so naturally menacing to this character. Something so effortlessly unnerving about this performance that I honestly think there's no comparison. This is the best Riddler we've ever gotten. This version of the Riddler is very true to the character, while adopting a completely original look. I do also see a resemblance to some other characters from Batman's Rogues Gallery. There's some elements of anarchy and hush in the performance, but I'll get to that in another video. Zoe Kravitz looks like she was ripped straight out of a comic book. Everything about the way the character is presented and how the character presents herself feels like Selina Kyle. From the way that she walks, to the way that she talks, her actions, her reactions, her motivation, everything about her feels like Catwoman to me. She's never once presented as a villain. Instead, she's defined as an anti-hero. Someone who's willing to do bad things for good causes. She's crafty, she's cunning, she's dangerous. But through all of that, she's human. She's never over the top in what it is she does. The relationship between Batman and Catwoman is completely realistic. You can understand how these two people from their own different, unique lifestyles could be drawn to each other. On the surface, they seem about as different as two people could be. But underneath it, even having similar reasons for their shared trauma.
We're the same. Split. Right down the center.
I don't want to get too much into detail with this one because that's going to reveal a whole lot. And I am trying my best to keep this video spoiler free. At least until after the credits. Colin Farrell is completely unrecognizable as the Penguin. And I don't mean just in terms of appearance. The guy loses himself in the role, and in the character's roles. It's easy to forget that it's him under the makeup. He plays a big dude with a big personality, and that personality breaks through a mountain of prosthetics and a fat suit. He's one of the most entertaining elements of the whole movie, and I found myself more often than not laughing at his awful jokes, or just the simple way that he would react to Batman. He's beyond buyable in the role that he's in, and the way this movie ends kinda sets him up to have a bigger part in future installments, and I personally can't wait for that. I wasn't sold on John Turturro as Carmine Falcone at first. To me, when I heard about this, it just seemed like a really weird casting choice. But then again, Colin Farrell, who's allegedly one of the sexiest men alive, playing the Penguin, didn't make a whole lot of sense to me either, and that worked. I can say the same thing here as well. The guy made it work. The movie shows the power this mob boss truly has by presenting him as nothing short of calm in every given minute. No matter what kind of danger he's in, nothing ever seems to faze him. He's in control, even in the moments when he isn't. I really liked Jim Gordon in this movie. I think more than ever, this movie recognizes that he and Batman are a team. They work together on cases, they compare notes, exchange information, speak amongst themselves. It's clear that the two hold each other in high regard. Why else would Gordon constantly be going to bat for the Bat? Toward the beginning of the movie, it's made apparent that Gordon is the only cop who believes in Batman and what he stands for, even if it is a detriment to his job, as he keeps finding himself in trouble due to bringing an outsider inside crime scene. Which, to be fair, that's valid. But whether that's because of protocol or something else, you'll have to watch the movie to find out. Gordon kind of reminds me of an old school cop from an 80s movie. And you know what? I don't hate it. I thought it was pretty good. We don't really get to know him much as a man because we're only shown him as a detective. Like I said, this movie doesn't really go outside of its main narrative, and that's okay. As a matter of fact, I somewhat prefer it that way. Andy Serkis made for a good Alfred. We don't really see him a whole lot, he only gets a couple scenes, but what we do see of him leaves a good impression. His concern for Bruce takes priority over everything else. While he's more than just a little bit supportive of Bruce and his extracurricular activities, he's still trying to reel him back into reality, to ground him, to show him that there's a life outside of the eye makeup. Alfred still helps Batman daily after dark, but he spends his day trying to bring Bruce out into the light. He's always trying to remind Bruce that he's a man in addition to being Batman. So yeah, we don't get a whole lot of time with this Alfred, but I look forward to seeing more of this character. The last thing I gotta comment on here is that the movie never once loses the plot. It doesn't attempt to incorporate whatever's going on in the lives of the lead that don't pertain to the plot at hand. We don't see Bruce trying to impress shareholders. We don't see Gordon sitting down to eat with his family. We don't see the Penguin plot outside of the main plot. And I really love it for that. Because you feel like, in a weird way, you're watching real events play out. How one scene seamlessly blends into the next, never taking its eyes off what's important, and never presenting anything to the audience that feels unimportant. You never know where the story's going for sure, but it does. There's so many big moments that happen in this 3-hour film, and sometimes they hit one after the other, after the other, after the other, constantly keeping its audience on edge. There is never once a dull moment. Not one. This is the type of movie that you can't even take a bathroom break for, because you'll wind up missing something huge. I would recommend this movie to everybody. To those who love Batman, watch this movie. To those that hate Batman and didn't like the previous movies, watch this movie. To those who know nothing about Batman, watch this movie. Because the thing about The Batman is, it's not just a great Batman movie, it's a great movie overall. And not even that it's just a great movie, but dare I say, at the risk of sounding like a pretentious douche nozzle, The Batman is a masterpiece. And it's the type of movie that I think can be enjoyed by everyone. Well, almost everyone, with the exception of angry parents who wanted Batman to smile more. Yeah, that's the character. This isn't a popcorn superhero movie. This is a deep dive into the psyche of characters that were always meant to be psychological studies. This is a film, this is cinema, this is what I really hope the next evolution of superhero movies are. Or, at the very least, the next evolution of Batman movies. I'll take that. That's fine. Since the movie's now just coming out, I wanted to give my thoughts on it and analyze it a little bit without spoiling too much of it, because I want you guys to experience this movie for yourselves. And it's for this very reason that I will be coming back with a full-on deep dive analysis of everything in the movie when the movie finally hits HBO Max. So if you like this video and will be coming back for when I do my next The Batman video, let me know in the comment section below by saying,
I'm vengeance.
With all that being said, I was your least favorite YouTuber, V Infuso, and I thank you for watching. Hope to see you in the next one.
I am vengeance. I am the night, and that was V Infuso. Just remember, if you're not tuning in, then you're missing out.
So, if you like the words that came out of his mouth hole, and you too would like to become a V-generate, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, nerds!
And if you're not joining the fun, you're in for one bad day. And you know what they say about having one bad day?
Catch him next time. Same bat time. Same bat channel.
Oh, and there's this really dope scene at the end with the Joker. Yeah, I'm not kidding. He's in that shit. He's there. The Joker. That's all.